There we go. Bear with me. Bear with me. There we go. There's that beautiful image. How are you doing, Miss Lisa?
I am great. Can you see me? I guess here I go. Start my video. Here we go. Aha.
Perfect. There she is, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for coming to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, Kevin.
Absolutely. Well, we wanted to just jump right in because I know that you have had a pretty extensive history with education, with definitely public speaking, working with the likes of Dr. Raymond Moody, but you've really have become a businesswoman in your own right. You've got your own consulting business, you have your own speaking business, you have your own book writing business. You stay very busy. It's hard for me to even get a hold of you sometimes. And so I appreciate this Sunday afternoon gathering, but
Pleasure.
I really just wanted to find out from you today a little bit about some of your books and your background. Would you share with our viewers a couple of the books that you have published or you're currently working on, a little bit like that?
Great, thank you. Well, I published the book Words at the Threshold that you had mentioned, which is about people's final words.
Hmm.
And I also have a book now that I am marketing to literary agent. Actually, a literary agent in New York has it right now, fingers crossed. And it's a fictional, it's a novel called Cante Bardo.
Mhm.
And then I'm working with Dr. Moody right now on a book called God is Bigger Than the Bible.
Wow.
And what he does, the book is so, especially in these difficult times, the book is really uplifting and gives a lot of comfort because it looks at how people who have had near-death experiences, and we're talking hundreds of people, what they experience God to be. And many of them say, you know, God is bigger than a book.
Yeah,
God is bigger than the Bible. So
definitely.
I'm really honored to be working with Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience on this book.
Awesome. How beautiful. Well, it's going to be very exciting to see what happens with all of this, with this New York agent of yours, because I know that your style of writing is very eloquent, and I know that you have a very good grasp of prose and even poetry. I know that you've written some poems, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken, right? And what is the name of
Absolutely.
that book that you wrote?
That book is called Veil, and the process of writing that book was so magical because it began a couple weeks after my father passed on,
Sure.
and one morning in my morning prayer and meditation, I heard his voice, and
Wow.
he said to me, "I have some poems. I know your mother is really grief-stricken, even more than you are in these times. Would you send her some love poems for me?" And so over a period of about maybe a little less than a year, he would send these poems to me. And you know, who knows? A part of me that's skeptical goes, maybe it's all just my imagination. But another part of
Bingo.
me just feels that it came from somewhere else. And so I put those poems together into this collection called Veil.
How magical. You know what? It says a lot about you, though, that you were willing to go out on a limb and listen to spirit, listen
Mm.
to the voice of spirit, whether it was your higher self, whether it was your mind, whether it was your father, which I truly do believe it was, because that story is a very common thread that I hear from so many people that even walk through my ministry in South Florida. And I hear from so many people that they hear they literally hear the voice of their loved one just hours or days after they pass in the home, and they know that it wasn't in their head because it was physical, it was external. And but just the fact that your spirit was inspired to write that down, what a testament to you that you're just tapped in and turned on and listening to spirit, but also the healing that you brought for your mother, even family or friends through the writing. It's incredibly powerful and very karmic. It definitely lifts away negative karma just because you took a leap of faith and you produced something like that. Most people would say, I might write it down in a journal, but I don't know if I'm going to publish it. And you published something beautiful. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you to Spirit for, being tapping my shoulder. And
And
you
thanks
know
to
what?
your dad. Your dad's a good communicator, clearly.
He's pretty loud and noisy. He's a New Yorker.
There you go. I need a,
Hey, you
I,
down there, listen to me. But
Well, let me tell you, if he's that loud and if he's that vocal and if he's able to really tap into you, that you need to be tapping into your father, because I know as an intuitive myself, when I can locate spirits, for lack of a better word, but a father figure like this who's crossed over and who is that connected to you, they will be much more likely to support and open doors for you. Call upon him, which I'm sure you already know this, but for our viewers, I want them to realize through this scenario that there is so much we can do by just asking. All we have to do is ask. So great job.
One thing, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kevin, but part of how I coach is I really do believe in this idea of of a muse and to trust that.
Wow.
And so my coaching may be a little different than some, more conventional book
And the
coaches
pushy New York types.
than the, than the pushing New York types. Because I really do believe in the idea of a muse, and I believe that all of us can tap into it. And when most of the people who finally make that call or send me an email have had some kind of inspiration. And I believe that being tapped into that inspiration is not only healing for ourselves, which it is, it's incredibly healing. Writing those poems, writing my novel, writing the book, all of those felt divinely inspired in different ways. But it's not only healing for ourselves, but when we listen to the voice of spirit, oftentimes those become the kinds of messages that are inspiring to other people as well. And so as a book coach, I really want to help people bring those messages from spirit to other folks. And what I do is, I was an English prof, so I know where to put the commas. I know how to organize a book. So I help my, people who come to me, my clients, bring their inspiration and put it into organized and grammatically correct, when at the very end, when we can clean it up, form. And that's my job.
I love that. So I'm curious, so often I hear people say, and especially even in my ministry and when I'm at seminars and conferences, I hear people talk about, oh, you should publish a book. Spirit's telling me you should publish a book. I can feel a book in your aura. And you hear all this stuff all the time. And, but it definitely, for me, I know over the last few years, it was confusing because I thought, well, how do I publish a book? I know that there's these big corporations, worldwide corporations that have global reach and distribution. How do these famous people get these book contracts? And well, now I hear Amazon has self-publishing and maybe I should go that route. And then there's Kindle and what the heck is all this stuff? And so I'm curious to ask you to help our viewers, but would you explain to our viewers how do you choose, or what's the difference really between a traditional publishing contract or publishing house and maybe going independent and self-publishing?
Good question. And it can be very confusing. When you go to traditional publisher, like I did with New World Library, and they're a great publisher, I want to give them a shout out. What you get is distribution, right? And through New World Library, my book now is translated into 6 different languages because they have those kinds of connections with publishers around the world. So people in Korea right now are reading Words at the Threshold, or in France, right, or in Germany. So that's amazing. And as a self-published author, it's really hard to get those kinds of connections and make that happen.
Makes sense.
And you get what's called an advance, and it's anywhere from 5,000 to, I don't know, 150,000 if you're famous or something.
Sure.
And then that helps you write the book. That finances the writing of the book. But what many people don't know, you have to pay that back to the publisher.
Oh.
So it's an advance on your royalties. Anyway, that's going into too much detail. But when you go to a publisher, you get the marketing, you get the credibility. I mean, sad to say it, but still, when I got Words at the Threshold published, I was able to get on, pretty big radio shows and on some TV shows because I had cred because of the publisher, because the media thinks, well, if an editor, a top-notch editor in New York, felt this was well written enough, then I believe it's well written too, right? Right.
Total sense.
But if something's coming self-published and it's just, generally more amateurly, not always, but if you don't have a coach to help you with it, or if you don't have an editor, I'm afraid to say a lot of self-published books are not well edited and there are mistakes in it.
That's true. We have seen those, right?
You have, right? And it loses credibility and authority. You want to, the word author and authority are very close, right?
Wow.
So anyway, but you don't get that much per book. With a publisher, I get about $1 per book on
Sure, I've
Words of
heard
the
that.
Threshold. But when you self-publish, you can walk away with $7 to $8 in your pocket
Right.
per book. So there are things to consider, but I still think if you can, I encourage most of my clients, unless I think their book is totally unmarketable, and I'll be honest with them about it.
Sure.
But I encourage my clients always to first go for the sky. Go to Harper and Row, go to Simon and Schuster, go to the good publishers, and then, from there you might consider self-publishing.
So shoot for the stars because you may at least land on the moon,
You
right?
got it.
That's so
Exactly.
true. Now, whenever people are preparing to write a book, what do you think are the three most important things to focus on or steps to focus on to prepare themselves?
A lot of us don't really know what the marketplace looks like. We think we have a great idea, and many of us do, but maybe it's already been written about 10 times.
Okay.
Or maybe there's no precedent in the market for your book, so it's going to be harder to break through. Like my book about final words and studying the linguistics of the dying, I had to kind of break through people's squeamishness about death and dying, right? So that was tougher. So, okay, so number one is know the marketplace, know the market, know your content, know what you're talking about, be really solid. You're an authority. So you really want to make sure know it, and know your reader. Who are you writing for? Because who you're writing for is really going to determine and shape the way you speak and the way you write in your book,
So when you
obviously.
say know who you're reading for, are you saying like demographics?
Yeah, know who your reader is.
Your reader, that's what you were saying. So that makes sense. So for me, for instance, in my ministry, the people that tend to come to my events or my lectures or my Sunday sermons, predominantly, it's single women. They
Mm.
tend to be 35 to maybe 65. So it's about a 30-year lifespan gap, whatever the word is, range. And they predominantly have some form of college education, whether or not it's a bachelor's degree. I don't think that's what I'm seeing. And so that's the type of demographic that you're talking about. So the people who are writing a book, maybe their demographic would be military, like veterans, or maybe it would be medical, like healthcare related concepts, especially if you're writing about different healing principles, or even something more academic. It just depends on who do you think you would feel comfortable presenting the idea in front of. So that makes a lot of sense, but it definitely takes a lot of work to figure out your demographics, especially if you don't already have an audience that's following you. So that might be a challenge, but I'm sure that you can figure that out through using your muse. And I know you asked, I don't even think I mentioned earlier, but you're my book writing coach on a book that I'm writing, that we're working on, and that the proposal's off to the publishers.
Right.
Yay. Well, what does
Yay.
that mean? It doesn't mean the book's done. It just means we've done a chunk in the beginning, and it's a gorgeous, perfect chunk now. So
Amen.
we did the market research. We did, you helped me figure out my demographics. You helped me figure out which of my, I don't want to say competitors, but people in my field of metaphysics, intuition, afterlife discussions, things like that. You help me identify who are the big players, and let's take a look at their Amazon listings and the categories that they're publishing in, the number of followers and things like that. How many times the book was accessed. I don't know how else to say that, but basically I learned a heck of a lot that I didn't know went into preparing for a book. And what I also realized, which kind of horrified me, but you promised me that it would be a benefit. But you said, okay, all the 9 months that you've spent writing, we're gonna take some of that and reorient this. Because remember how I had written just all over the place? It didn't have any focus. I was just writing anything I could. So I wish I would have had a book writing coach in the beginning, because it would have put a stop to me writing things that had nothing to do with what I wanted to talk about. Right?
Yeah, but sometimes we need to do that to explore a topic, because I'm going to have a true confession. You ready for a
Sure.
true
Tell
confession
me.
here?
I'll receive. I'll receive. You're with the minister here.
It's
So
just you and me, honey, right now. So my true confession is that there was one chapter in my book that the original chapter was 300 pages
Wow. Oh my gosh.
because
Okay.
I had
That
to,
wasn't that bad.
yeah, no, it wasn't at all. But because I have to explore the topic. And so
Sure.
that's what we call pre-writing. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, and sometimes if we try to focus it too soon, it loses vitality
Hmm.
and doesn't cover all the bases.
Good.
Yeah, no, but so I think that
Okay,
is
good.
part.
So I had passion in my book still.
Yeah, and it's juicy and alive. Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's take a question from one of our readers.
Ooh, great.
And Sarah wants to know, this is actually from Facebook. Somebody's sending me a message through Facebook. And she wants to know, let's see, bear with me as I can read this. Okay. She wants to know, as far as writing books, how long from the point of starting to write
Mm.
till I get a coach and then we begin submitting our proposals? How long does that take?
It's a really great question. Wow. You know, it depends on who you are, what you've written, how you work. And so it can take anywhere from, I would say, 20 to 200 hours.
Okay.
But tell you what, I do a free introductory consultation, and Kevin will be sharing that link. And let's you and I have a conversation so that once I know more about who you are, what you've done, I can give you a definite answer. I mean, Kevin, you and I did the bulk of the proposal over what, 4 days?
It didn't take us long at
It
all.
didn't take us long, and it's just you and I are so busy. It's been hard to get together to.
Right.
How many hours do you think you've put into your proposal?
Probably, I would guess, actually, I would guess probably close to 80,
Yeah, that sounds very,
you know,
that's right kind of in the middle of what I had said, right?
because if you think
Yeah,
about 80 hours, you think, whoa, what a huge number. But really, if I spent maybe 4 hours a day, that's less than a month, you've spent 80 hours.
that's right.
And so, but really, I have put a lot of time in because there's a lot of time where I'm at with my laptop and my notes and I'm rewriting and editing and going back, discovering mistakes that how in the heck could I not have seen that before? But we become kind of blind to some things. We read it so much. And, but really, I can see how just a little bit of effort every day, which is what you suggested, I've gotten a lot further along than I thought I would.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah,
That was
it's a
really a big
beautiful,
help.
you've
Really.
done, yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're still working on it, but good stuff. And actually, I haven't even told you, but I think I finished one or two more chapters, so I'll have to let you take a look at those.
Ooh, exciting.
I like
And
those.
I have to give a shout out. The name of the book is Living. Oh, should I say it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, share with them.
Living a Psychic Life. And it's a
Yes,
really rich
absolutely.
book. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys, if you're interested in connecting with Lisa after the show, just for a free consultation, I'm going to be placing the links to lifeafterlife.com, which is the website that she's partnered with, and then with Dr. Raymond Moody. And then also there will be links to the free consultations where you can sign up for an appointment time and all the other good stuff. Okay. So we'll make sure we have that placed into the YouTube video body after this call. Lisa, I wanted to ask you, what do you think were some of the skill sets that you had to learn along the way to becoming the successful Lisa you are today, whether it be a businesswoman or whether it being a published author?
Well, how much time do we have
I
today?
know, keep it short and sweet.
um, when I met someone named Laura Davis who wrote the incredible book called The Courage to Heal for survivors of sexual abuse.
Wow.
It's a classic. It's been published around the world. And I took a few classes from her, and she said, there are writers and there are authors.
Oh, wow.
Writers are the people who write and love to write. Authors are the people who learn how to bring that message out into the world. And the truth is, what that means is it means marketing, how to get a platform. It means, tracking your expenses. It means learning how to negotiate. It means all the things that running a business is about. So I was a writer for a long time, and then I decided, you know what? I quit my great job, my county job. I had a great secure county job. I took the leap and decided to become an author, and that's a lot of skills, and part of what I do when I work with my clients is to not only help them become writers, but I also help them to become authors.
That's beautiful. That's really a beautiful way of thinking. I like that.
Thank you.
I'm curious about the book Words at the Threshold. Can you tell our viewers a little bit, maybe a favorite memory related to the book, or what
Mhm.
inspired you to write this book?
Uh, um, well, what inspired me is that during my father's dying process, my training was in linguistics, which is the study of language.
Wow.
And during my father's dying process, I just began to see unbelievable shifts in his language that opened up my curiosity.
Wow.
And at the end of that period, when my father passed away, I went to UC Berkeley, where I went to school and studied linguistics. And I went to the library, in the linguistics library, thinking there was going to be a lot about what I had witnessed in my father's language. And there was actually nothing written
Wow.
about the linguistics of end of life language. So um, I felt inspired and I felt called to pursue that. So what happened is, by a series of synchronicities, I got to meet Raymond Moody.
Wow.
Uh, and I think one of my happiest memories, most memorable moments, was that I I was in temple just as I began to get this passion for final words, and this person came up to me and said, "How you doing after your dad's death?" And I said, "I'm kind of possessed by this idea of final words research." And he said, "You know what? I know someone named Dr. Raymond Moody. Do you
Huh.
know who he is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know who he is," because I had read his book,
Yeah.
Life After Life, when I was 17. And he said, "I'm teaching with Raymond
Wow.
next month. Would you be interested in coming?" And I said, "Well, how much is it?" And he said, 2 grand. And I was like, "Eesh."
Woo.
I didn't, at the time, that was a lot of money for me. Well, believe it or not, 2 or 3 days later, my income tax refund came
Wow.
for, guess how much, Kevin?
2000 exactly.
Just about 1995 and 27
Incredible.
cents or something. So I thought, well, that's definitely a sign. So I jumped on a plane and headed out to meet Raymond Moody. And I think the moment that I remember that just felt, you know how we have these moments that I call compelling reference points, those moments in time where that just stay with us for our whole lifetimes. I remember the fourth day of this seminar, this humble man, right? This man has sold millions of books, literally, but he's sitting there in his tennis shoes and with his Diet Coke, and just very humble guy. And the fourth day he said, "I've been looking for a linguist who
Huh.
might be interested in studying final words with me someday."
Oh my
And
God.
I went, "Holy moly." And I'll just, afterwards, we spoke, and there was this instant connection between Raymond and me, as if we had found each other after years. And we've been great friends and co-authors, or not really authors, but
Sure.
I've been kind of his friend and editor over the last few
Wow.
years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How synchronistic. That I hear stories like that so often, where spirit opens doors and guides people into the most synchronistic moments. And when those happen, I just turn to spirit and I say, thank you. I
Mhm.
know I'm exactly where I need to be in the universe, because this is not coincidence. That's incredible. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah.
The in the book, are there any memories of writing the book, or were there any interviews that you did that really stood out with this book?
Wow, there are so many. I'll just tell you, this was not about the content, but one of the things that happened, I my when I finally got the contract, and I had the last chapter I had to do, and I was, very close to deadline, of course, right? Um, I spilt my tea on my computer, and anyway, I lost the last chapter I was working on because
Oh
I
wow.
screwed up my computer. So I learned a really good lesson, that I do all my writing now on Google Docs. So just for those of you out there, if you're writing something that's really dear to your heart and you don't already use Google Docs, use Google Docs. In terms of the content and things in my book, there are so many, I hesitate to even go into it. But
Sure, sure, sure.
talking to families about their loved ones' dying words it's
Wow.
just such a moving process. And I have a free chapter of my book on my website if people want to see some of the stories and some of the things that you
Oh,
asked
that'd
me
be
about.
wonderful. And can you tell us your website? I will put it into the body of the video, but if you'll tell them now.
Yeah, finalwordsproject.org. There is a free chapter there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like, yeah, it's the first chapter, so you can get more of a sense of the book and some good stories from there.
And so going from this is nonfiction, Words at the Threshold, but let's talk about you have a fiction book, Conte Bardo, and if I'm not mistaken, let's see if I can find this beautiful image. If you'll bear with me, of course it's it escaped me at the moment, but we'll find it. Is that it? Let's see if I can find this and share this for you. But anyway, we'll just talk a little bit about the book, and then as you're doing that, I'll be looking for that image for you. Okay.
Great, thanks a lot for doing that, Kevin. It was also a magical process. I mean, I think part of why I'm a writer and part of why I love being a book coach is that writing can be very, I mean, it's not only grueling and difficult, we have to be organized, but it also can be very, very magical. So I wrote this book. The very first inspiration was way back in, well, it was, gosh, oh my Lord, 20 years ago, the very first hints of it. And this character came to me just like my dad did. And he said he was a flamenco singer from the late 1800s, and he wanted to tell me his story. And it was incredibly magical. I didn't know anything about flamenco at the time, but it also, one of the main characters, who is a magician in the year, there it is. One of the main characters, who's a magician in the year 2018, she just believes that magic is just a thing of illusions, right? It's not the real deal, it's just sleight of hand. And this flamenco ghost comes to show her that life is really filled with more magic than you can imagine. And it's more than just a bunch of tricks, that there's magic in life. But it's a book about reincarnation, and she lands up having a near-death experience. So I wrote this book before I met Raymond Moody, before I got into this work. And so there's this really magical quality. And I lived in Spain for a summer, and wrote the book, interviewed flamenco dancers, and really studied this character, Carlos Pena. And it was one of the most magical things in my life. And the reason I write is it's the most magical thing besides falling in love that I know. And those are the kinds of experiences all of us can have, I think, as writers. And many do. Many have shared with me that they do.
Wow, how exciting! So you got to do your research in Spain and have
Uh,
tapas, and were you married at the time?
I was, to a very wonderful, he was wonderful because he just said, go, I'll take care of
Wow.
everything.
Oh,
And um, I lived in Sacramento in Granada, which is where the gypsies live, with these beautiful old caves.
wow.
And it was such a blessed experience. And for me, writing, I've learned about life and history and our world through writing. And because the research I've done, the experiences, so that time in in Spain was really amazing. I tried taking flamenco classes and I was a dismal failure, but but it was just beautiful, inspiring. And there's this word duende, which is, the thing about the idea of the spirit or the soul.
Wow.
And so I learned a lot about duende, and I think I'm very proud of the book, and I'm very excited that after all these years I've done 12 revisions on the book, because when I would
Wow.
get
That's
feedback from people,
incredible.
and I kept making it better. And this is part of being a writer.
Sure.
And finally, it's sitting with an agent right now. I mean, yeah, with an agent, my fingers are crossed.
Oh, how I love that. How exciting. Okay, good. And
Thank
so with that book, with your with the fiction book, Conte Bardo, what was the inspiration behind it? What spurred you to go that direction?
What happened, I mean, literally, I was sitting, I was working, I was teaching at a community college, teaching English. And it
Mhm.
was before going to work one morning, and I was just doing my usual, I've meditated and prayed
Sure.
for many years. And then I heard this voice, hi, I'm Carlos Pena, and I have a story to tell. And I went, what?
Oh, love it.
I know, it was so cool. And I said, what? He said, do you want to? And he was kind of rough. He said, are you going to tell my story, girl? I'm like,
Oh,
okay, hold on, bro. Let's wait.
it's kind of Spanish. Oh, I love it.
And then I didn't know anything about flamenco. He said, I'm a cantador from flamenco. And I'm like, what's that? And he said, I'm from Cadiz. So
Wow.
he said this stuff, and I just kept writing everything automatically. And then I began to do the research. So he would say things to me, but being a skeptic also, I would research to see if it was actually true. And it was so exciting because he would tell me this stuff.
Ah,
And then a lot of it was validated as I wrote the novel. Yeah, it was really,
marvelous.
it was such a blessed experience.
Oh, talk about having the ultimate ghostwriter. Oh, how's that? Okay, so I want to pull a question from my Facebook channel that I can see. Keith wants to know. I think you've already answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. What kind of money can you make as a writer? I know you've touched a little upon money. You've mentioned the contract, but could you talk about, um, you know, what are some of the expenses that go into writing a book, and what should you prepare for? Do you even have to spend money on advertising, or I hear about these book tours. Who pays for the book tour? Things like that.
Yeah, making money being a writer, just being a writer, it's completely possible and there are ways of doing it, but it's rare. It happens, but it's rare that it's just one book
Wow.
that gets you there. Now, it does happen. It's sort of like being an NBA, a professional football player or a basketball player. People do make it,
Yes.
right? But if you look at the vast majority of people who have dreams in high school of being a pro baller, that many don't. And yet, those people who maybe had aspirations of being an NBA player, there are many things between failure and NBA
Oh, yes.
that are gratifying, right? That
A
are
lot of
really
failure to get
gratifying.
there.
So, and in terms of making money, I've made a little bit of money from my books.
Sure.
I know writers who are more kind of who are writing. If you find a niche that people love, like a romance writers can do really well. A certain science fiction. So if you find your niche and you find your audience, you
Wow.
can do pretty well. So it's
Awesome.
it's like any product. I mean, what's sad is I hate to talk about writing as a product because, as you
Sure.
can tell from our conversation, it's something that's inspiring to me. But the truth is, it is about the market. And if you already have followers, you're going to be able generally to do much better if you already have what's called a platform.
Sure.
But I have a friend, for example, who sold a movie script or the rights to his book for the movies. He got a check for 400K for that. And that's fabulous. That's the exception, but it can happen.
Wow.
But most advances for a first time author are going to be maybe 7,000 to 20,000, maybe even 5 to 20. But if you have an extraordinary experience, for example, someone contacted me who was the attorney who went against Bill Cosby, who
Right.
defended the woman who, and so she contacted me recently, and she might get a very good contract because it's very,
High
popular
profile.
topic. Yeah, high profile. So, Keith, I'm sorry to be so kind of unspecific, but it really is, if you were to say, how much could I get for this cup? It's like any marketing. It depends how you distribute it. It depends how you market it, and it depends what the perceived need is of it.
That's
So, yeah, if I can answer this question more, Keith, just contact me, schedule an
sure.
appointment. I'll be glad to go into more detail.
Perfect. Perfect. And then, so I wanted to know also, what do you think? Let's see, what's coming up for you in the near future? Anything special you're working on, or?
You
I,
know, Raymond and I are finishing up on God is Bigger Than the Bible, and I'm just loving my time working with Raymond. And we'll see what happens with Conte Bardo. But you know what? If nothing happens right now with the agent and we can't get a publisher or anything, I self-published the book recently, and I'll just start pushing it more. So Conte Bardo, God is Bigger Than the Bible. Those are my two biggest projects, and coaching my wonderful client. I have got the best clients in the world. I'm really fortunate.
this is your book, Words at the Threshold, that I didn't put up earlier, but I wanted to make sure people saw that. Okay.
Yay.
Yeah, very good. And it's been really, the time has flown, but
Oh, no
Lisa, I
kidding.
just wanted to say thank you for the time that you gave, just some of the quick knowledge that you shared with our viewers. And I just also appreciate just all that you poured into me as a potential author. And I could not have gotten to the point that I'm at if it hadn't been for you. And I will put my 2 cents in to say that Lisa is incredibly patient, with me and my ideas, because I've always got ideas. My mind's always going, should I do this, do that, go here, run there? And she's been able to keep me focused and to really help me identify what was my intention in my writing, or to keep me focused on my message. And maybe you're going where you don't need to go with this conversation, and maybe you need to reconsider this. So I really found you to be very guiding and helpful, very inspiring, and truly what I would think of as a book coach. You did a beautiful job with me. You still
Oh,
are.
thank
We have a
you.
ways to go, and probably we have some other books to produce, but for now, it's just been an amazing journey, and I'm excited to see even where Words at the Threshold. I feel, even though it's published, you still have a lot of work to do from an intuitive perspective. I can sense that you've got a lot of stage work to do with this, because there's so many organizations that would be blown away by the concept. Who would have ever thought about researching what people say at the end of life? Because we often think of elderly people making their transition with these mumbling words and talking about people who aren't even there. And well, there's a language, there's a dialogue, a communication takes place at the end, and it's just such a beautiful time of life. It's a difficult time of life, but it's a beautiful time of life. And I think you do a beautiful job with this book and with the concept, and just appreciate you for everything today.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a beautiful hour with Miss Lisa Smartt. And again, I'll be placing her contact information in the body for her for the book Words at the Threshold, and also how to get in touch with her through lifeafterlife.com. And you can contact her through those links for your consulting time with her. Again, that's free. It's a free offer today. And she also has at what is the name of the other website where they can get the free chapter?
Oh, finalwordsproject.org.
That's it, finalwordsproject.org. And I have that information. Again, that'll be pasted into the body of the video. And we just thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. All right. Take care.